All right, everyone. As predicted, another person has dropped out of the GOP field. This time it was Mike Pence, actually, the other day, calling it quits, suspending his campaign. Came out, gave a little presser, basically said, well, it's not my time. Clearly, I haven't gained any traction, so it's just not going to occur. For a former VP to have so little support in the field actually was a monumental condemnation of his vice presidency. Pence was effectively chosen by Trump for the running mate role and the VP slot thereafter once he won to counterbalance because Mike Pence is a fairly unassuming standard neocon. I think originally, because Trump had no political experience, at least in the explicit sense, he mistakenly believed that he could get the establishment to play ball with him and they would take some of the heat off of him because I think he genuinely believes in his populistic goals. He's more of an 80s style corporate Republican or even Democrat light than he is a modern neocon. And he said, okay, well, I'll choose a running mate that won't offend or alarm the establishment. They'll leave me alone some. I think he did this with multiple hirings. It didn't always work quite well when he had people that were more inner circle and populist with him. You'll note the ones that are getting charged with various crimes in Fulton and elsewhere are all the ones that actually remain friendly with Trump for the most part. There might be a little bit of a coincidence that is involved with this. Mike Pence, though, is never going to win. It was always impossible for that to happen. Even if Trump had chosen not to run, Mike Pence probably would have stayed in the single-digit range. Even if it hadn't been a packed field, I don't think that anyone really wanted a Pence presidency, including a lot of the TDS sufferers. Like they think about it this way. Here's why he couldn't form a coalition. He can't form a coalition because the people that still like Trump, they're with Trump. They hate, Pence generally. They think he's a traitor. People who dislike Donald Trump, TDS sufferers, aren't going to vote for you because you were Trump's literal VP. You were part of his administration. Anyone who is part of the Trump administration is not easily going to get the TDS vote, even if they come out and lambaste him, like a Chris Christie. Let alone if you're Mike Pence and you sort of waffle on the issue and you're like, well, I think that these criminal proceedings against Trump are wrong. I have my misgivings about him. I kind of like the dude, but I kind of hate the dude. And just sort of doing the standard neocon straddling the fence thing. That's why Mike Pence failed. Now, because Mike Pence never mattered to begin with, let's analyze something that does. What impact does this actually have on the race? Not a whole lot, actually. As the field clears prior to voting beginning, of course, you're still a few months out from Iowa, I expected at least a few candidates to drop. Tim Scott would be on the short list of people I expect to be edged out at some point. I think Mike Pence would have actually potentially made the debate stage. I think he looked at the metrics, said, I don't think I'm going to quite get enough donations, and if I'm not on that stage, I'm just going to call it quits. Tim Scott would probably be another one that'll drop out fairly soon. Of course, he's playing deep second fiddle to Nikki Haley for the South Carolina vote. I would expect at least one more person to drop before Iowa. We've got 3 people who dropped. I know there was that first dude who I can't remember the name of and was never in the polling and nobody cared. Then you had Larry Elder, of course. He at least he's got name recognition. I can remember his name. Now you've got Mike Pence. And Mike Pence was ahead of half of the current field. I think at least one more person drops. Of course, it won't be like Christie probably doesn't because he's a one-trick pony. If you're on the debate stage in November, you probably don't need to drop out. It'll be a fairly scant number of people there, actually. It'll be basically DeSantis and Haley and nothing else, which, by the way, means very few people, I think, are going to bother to watch it because they're no longer viable either. And Trump, of course, has said, I'm not showing up. Although it'd be funny if he did. Unexpectedly, he decides to take the debate stage for one last clobberfest. It would be funny. I don't know how strategically smart it would be, but it would definitely be amusing. Of course, he might have court that day, too, because of the uniparty gunning for him. And that's the other thing. Mike Pence was part of the Trump administration. But nobody, despite the fact that he had classified papers in his home and shit like that, nobody ever came for him legally. It started to be a little bit obvious sort of whose side he was on, because you've got that differential enforcement within the so-called Justice Department and all these DAs and so forth. But I don't think it has a huge impact on the race. It's basically just another harbinger of Trump's inevitability. Other people are going to slowly filter out. They all thought they had their chance. And Mike Pence, I think, got in the first place in the mistaken assumption that Trump would decline once indicted. I think he's sort of in on the game. That didn't happen. And again, if you're running too low in donations to get on the GOP's watered-down, also-ran debate stage, I mean, at some point, the writing's on the wall. Other people appear not to have gotten the memo. Now, there's one other thing. Mike Pence's endorsement. He has not endorsed anyone. When he gave his speech and dropped out, he didn't do what Larry Elder did, or the other dude, the first dude endorsed Haley. Elder endorsed Trump. By the way, again, I think that gets him to the magical 60 that he needs to be at to be inevitable, based on that half-point swing or so that he'll get from the Larry Elder endorsement. That pretty much wraps it up. Mike Pence has chosen not to. That's probably because he doesn't want to be part of the fray at all. I think what he's afraid of is he knows that if he endorses Donald Trump, that Trump could end up running from a jail cell in a catastrophically failed campaign. I think much like the reason he got in, he's expecting Trump to fail. I think that he is incorrect on this, but that's, I think, is speculation. But because he's also not totally sure, because anything can and does happen in politics, he doesn't want to endorse someone else. Trump becomes nominee, wins, and all of a sudden the former VP, who's now a private citizen, is subject to the ire of a sitting president who he stabbed in the back repeatedly. I think that he is reluctant, therefore, to actually give an endorsement at all. I mean, he might. Maybe he's going to wait for the race to clear more till it's, more certain that Trump is inevitable, and then he says, okay, it's time to unify the party. Like it or not, the GOP voters have spoken or something. The other possibility is he holds off and he's hoping for like a brokered convention thing where the GOP decides to ignore its entire electorate and commit suicide as a party and go with somebody like Mike Pence. That would be very funny, although again, there's no possibility that you're ever going to see a President Pence. The only possibility for that was if during the first term of Donald Trump, or had he honk won a second, he croaks or something like that. That's ascending to the presidency through non-elected means would be the only methodology for a person like him. Sort of like you can't really imagine a President Dick Cheney, but if the dude who threw a live hand grenade up on stage at George W. had been successful, you might be seeing that. He'd probably be on heart number 4 by now due to the work stress of that job. Pence is a loser. I'm glad that he's dropped out. Again, though, I don't know what he expected to do as far as creating a voting coalition. It's kind of a mystery because he's not dumb. He may not be the brightest bulb in the array, but he's also not a complete idiot. I mean, he should have been able to do the political calculus very easily and say, I've pissed off MAGA and anti-MAGA because I've been part of the administration, but I'm also seen by people who still like the former administration as a traitor or a coward. Well, I think that I've got a great shot at winning. It was always funny because he was talking in third person on Twitter. Hopefully this means less weird tweets. Really, mean tweets are one thing, but completely deranged tweets that often don't even fully make sense grammatically, where the account talks in the third person. Vice President Mike Pence attends a barbecue. And shit like that, it's like, speak for yourself. Most of the other candidates have learned how to. Apparently he and Christie are the only ones that have that issue. Really strange dude. Trump is jovial right now, by the way, and immediately called for Pence to endorse him. We'll see if Mike Pence comes trotting back like a little spanked puppy to his side one last time. That's about all. Peace out.